This is Jungle Val, also known as Vallisneria, and this plant has covered my 29-gallon in only a matter of weeks. Now, what is this plant and how does it grow so fast? Today I'm going to show you this amazing aquarium plant and why you should maybe consider keeping it. So this is Jungle Val. Basically, it grows pretty tall and it has a dark green color to it. Usually the dark green means that it's healthy. If it's really light green or yellowish, then that typically means that there's some sort of nutrient deficiencies, or if you see their leaves dying away. In my experience, this plant can grow anywhere from 6 to 12 inches in your fish tank. It really depends on your tank size. In my 29-gallon, for example, they get really huge. After they reach the surface, they just kind of bend over and just keep growing. I will say that Vallisneria is super duper hardy. You're not going to need a CO2 system or specially high lighting, so it is a great beginner plant. Like I said before, they are very hardy, but they do prefer harder water and slower water flow. Substrate doesn't matter too much. You could have an aquarium soil, gravel, or sand, as long as something for it to anchor itself. Today's video is special because we are joined by Droeks on Fishkeeping from Stellenbosch, South Africa. He's been keeping this plant for quite a few years now, so can you tell us some benefits of Jungle Val?
Good day, fish tankers. Droeks on Fishkeeping here. Vallisneria, what are the benefits of this great low-tech plant? Well, firstly, it's a great background plant, especially in tall aquariums as well as around the side of aquariums. And then it also provides shade as the leaves trail across the surface, very much like floating plants do. And over and above that, it's also a very fast growing plant, and the faster a plant grows, the more nutrients it uses, so that gets rid of the ammonia and the nitrates especially that we have to dilute by water changes, giving us less work. It also grows very dense, and that dense growth gives a great hiding place for fry, not only for live bearers but sometimes even egg laying layers fry survive, like these little diamond tetras that were born in this tank.
And yeah, these plants look great. They do kind of look like those tall green weeds in your yard, but they can really create this dark jungly look if you're looking to create like a rainforest or river theme style setup. Usually used as a background plant because of the way it grows. And actually, when you plant like a couple row of these in the back of your tank, after they grow tall, they're gonna grow along the surface of the water, and that way it creates a nice look with the plants hovering over the tank. Also, one thing to note is that I wouldn't recommend keeping this plant in any tank under 10 gallons. They're just not really suitable for small tanks because of the way they grow and their size, and so for that reason, they do require a larger tank.
What type of aquarium does Vallisneria require? It's not suited for a high-tech aquarium of CO2 injection like this one. Rather, it's suited to your more simple low-tech tanks like the one you see here. And it's a plant that feeds from the substrate, so it needs to get its nutrients in that substrate below. And one way you can do it is the way I like to do it, which is a dirted substrate, a soil layer capped off by sand. If that's not your bag, you can use any kind of aqua soil. That will work too, as long as there's something for the roots to feed on. Even gravel will work, or just sand if there's enough mulm that's accumulated like you see here. They like a substrate with some dirt, some sustenance in it, and over and above that they just need a light. It can just be a white LED light like this one. It can be part spectrum or it can be full spectrum, as long as there is a light. They like medium light, but it does not have to be your high-end lighting.
Now moving on to fertilization. So this plant will definitely do best if you have root tabs. Liquid fertilizers, they can help, but they're not as efficient, primarily because they feed from the roots. As I said before, root tabs, make sure you got that, unless you have a dirted substrate, or if you have a nutrient-rich substrate like fluval or Amazonia. Just make sure to keep it heavily fed from the roots because that's where they're going to be getting most of their nutrients. This is also why having a deep substrate helps, because that way they're going to be able to expand their roots and take whatever nutrients they need. That is the key to success for this plant. Keep the roots fed and you're not going to have a problem. If you ever see them turning brown or yellow, 99% of the time it's because they don't have the necessary nutrients. So always keep the substrate nutrient rich. This is also great if you have a tank full of fish like guppies that are just constantly creating waste, which equals to constant food supply for these plants. And just like nutrient soakers such as hornwort and guppy grass, Jungle Val is just as good as them, possibly even better since they can go deep down. In many cases actually, the fish waste in itself would be enough to fuel this plant. So in my 29 gallon here, I use root tabs, but I also kind of rely on the fish waste. So both of these nutrient sources will provide, and the fish and shrimp waste does help in that I don't have to add as many root tabs as often. So, Jungle Val is a root feeder. It feeds primarily from its roots, which is one of the reasons why they grow so fast. They're just able to keep propagating and keep spreading. So basically what they're going to do is that they're going to send these long white roots called runners that are from their own roots. They're going to spread out to the substrate, propagate itself. It's basically the plant expanding its roots. So after they send out these runners, it's going to grow new plant shoots from them. And so that's Jungle Val propagation in a nutshell. They send runner after runner, and before you know it, they're going to cover up your entire tank. So how to plant this? Well, planting Jungle Val is pretty basic, and there's only two things you need to know. One is that the roots should be placed under the substrate, and two, the crown, which is where the leaves come out, that should be slightly above the substrate just so that it doesn't get crushed under. Some people use tweezers or some type of aquascaping thing, but I like to use my hands to just get them in there real quick and simple.
What are the drawbacks of Vallisneria? Well, the advantage of being fast growing is also a drawback, because sometimes they can just outgrow your other substrate feeding plants like the cryptocorynes or even your Amazon swords. It can just outcompete them for food, so sometimes you have to trim them out of those areas where you want the other plants to grow. Then because they grow fast, they trail across the surface and they can create shade, which is nice, but when it becomes too much, the plants underneath get shaded out. Like you can see, these crypts are struggling, especially that little crypt balance in here, so it needs a trim off the surface. And another disadvantage of Vallisneria is they don't take well to liquid carbon. So if you want to use liquid carbon to combat blackbeard algae, not in your Vallisneria tank, or at least half a dosage, because they don't do well with it. Now, trimming Vallisneria isn't a big headache. You do that when the plant is doing well, not when it's struggling, and if it has got leaves growing across the surface like here, that means that it's growing well. And use a pair of scissors. It can be aquascaping scissors, because they are stainless steel, and just trim the leaves off so that there's some light going through the surface. And the leaves don't regrow, they die back, but new leaves grow in their place. So just trim the leaves off every now and then so that there's some light growing through to your plants that sit underneath. And then they grow fast, and to prevent them from outgrowing everything else, just trim off the runners. You can use a pair of scissors like I'm doing here. You can even pinch them off with your hands, and then you can just pull out the plantlets that you don't want overgrowing your rest of your plants, like the crypts over here, and you can just tug them out by hand, and you have 3 plants that you can replant elsewhere. My final thoughts on Vallisneria: well, it's a great low-tech plant that doesn't have to break the bank. It grows fast, so it helps you maintain water quality. It's a great refuge for little fish. It's great if you want to have a bit of colony breeding action going on in your aquarium, and you just have to provide a substrate that has got some nutrients for it to feed on. And it's a great low-tech plant that will serve you in good stead and provide you with an endless supply of free plants as long as you want them. Just a shout out to Aquafinity for giving me this opportunity, this platform to share my views on this great aquarium plant. Please give their channel a subscribe, and until we see each other again, keep taking good care of those domestic denizens of the deep.
Alright, now I want to show you guys something super cool real quick. Now what you're seeing right here is the roots of the Jungle Val under the tank. You could just see how they spread out deep under and just expand themselves looking for nutrients. You can even see them here, like just reaching out as far as they can. And this really gives you an idea of how extensive their root systems are. Now the reason you could see this is because the bottom of the tank is made of glass, obviously, and also the stand doesn't have like a covering, which is pretty nice because that allows you to see everything from down under. Another thing I want you guys to realize is that the roots really grow sideways. A lot of people assume that if the substrate is deep enough, all the roots are going to grow is to grow down from the top to the bottom, but that is the case, but more so is when the roots hit the bottom, they keep growing sideways. That's where they're going to grow for the most part. Anyways, that's just something I wanted to show. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.